In the endless silence of deep space, a world has been found, untouched, lush and rich, with a mineral that could change the future of human civilization. But Ena-Viridian holds more than just resources. Beneath its glowing forests and bioluminescent skies lies a memory, one not its own. When two rival crews arrive to claim its treasure, they awaken something ancient, something that doesn't speak in words, but in dreams, resonance, and pain. This is the story of what happens when the planet remembers you. Welcome to Whispers of Halcyon. Welcome back, traveler. Before we set course tonight, take a second to anchor us. A thumbs up or a comment is like a signal ping through the void. It lets me know someone's out there. And if you feel like journeying with us again, subscribing opens the hatch to all future missions. Dim the lights. Get comfortable. Tonight, we drift into the unknown. Chapter 1. The Green Sky. Ilara Voss stood at the edge of the clearing, her boots sunk slightly into moss that shimmered with an oily, bioluminescent sheen. The trees stretched high into the atmosphere like cathedral pillars, branches braided in glowing vines that pulsed faintly, as if breathing. Above, the sky was a deep teal, two suns filtering light through a haze of violet mist. Ena-Viridian, the planet catalogued only a year ago and marked immediately as a high-priority trithalium site, looked nothing like the geological survey models. Behind her, Dr. Rami Shale knelt beside a tangled root structure, gently brushing aside soil with a gloved hand. The soil pH is hovering around 3.2, acidic as hell, but the plants are thriving. Whatever this ecosystem is, it's not following terrestrial logic. It shouldn't, Ilara replied. Her voice carried the kind of quiet authority that came from experience, not command. She kept her eyes on the tree line. This place evolved on its own. No human hands to tame it. Juno Marek, the ship's pilot, stood a few meters away, tapping on her slate. Drone sweep just mapped a crescent ridge about 5 clicks east. Plenty of exposed mineral seams. If trithalium is here, that's where it'll be. Rami straightened, wiping his gloves on his suit. I still don't understand how a superconductor forms in a biological matrix. It shouldn't exist in this form. That's what we're here to find out, Ilara said. She turned toward the others. Let's move. They hadn't taken 5 steps before the proximity alert pinged on Juno's slate. Hold up, she said. We've got a thermal bloom, artificial source, southeast quadrant. Definitely not one of our drones. Ilara's brow furrowed. Another expedition? Juno adjusted her display. Size and shape suggest a landed vessel, modular, heavily shielded. Ilara exhaled slowly, then keyed her comm. Hex, are you seeing this? Back aboard the Halcyon Dream, the ship's engineer responded instantly. Yeah, and it gets better. I just picked up a low-band frequency burst. Military-grade compression. Masked. Somebody's playing quiet out here. Ilara looked out at the forest. The shimmering trees suddenly felt less like mystery and more like witnesses. Let's go pay them a visit. Chapter 2. The Second Flame. The foreign camp looked temporary but fortified. Steel scaffolds framed the perimeter, half-buried seismic rigs formed a circle around the drilling platform, and a pair of automated turrets tracked the Halcyon crew with dispassionate precision. Everything gleamed under a matte black finish, fresh metal, high-spec tools, and a working-class brutality that screamed private contractor. Captain Reese Calder emerged from the central prefab unit with the confidence of a man who didn't expect questions. He wore civilian armor plated with old military enhancements and smiled like someone used to talking his way out of court-martials. Well, he said, spreading his arms like a welcoming host, isn't this a surprise? Ilara stopped 10 meters out, flanked by Juno and Rami. Her posture was relaxed, but the weight in her gaze didn't waver. You're trespassing on a UP excavation zone. This planet is under scientific designation pending evaluation. Calder grinned. You must be Ilara Voss. I've read your work on neural flora. Brilliant stuff. But I think your maps are outdated. Nemean Group filed proprietary claim on this site 3 months ago. We've got the signatures to prove it. Rami leaned closer to Ilara. That's impossible. We were the first team registered for orbital insertion. Calder tilted his head, mock thoughtful. Registration doesn't mean much when the bureaucracy back home runs on 7-month lag. That's a long time to lose a claim in the void. Juno took a step forward. Her voice was calm but tight. You're drilling into an unstable biological system. You even know what you're sitting on. A second figure stepped out of the prefab, a woman with cropped silver hair and a tech rig slung across her shoulder. She wore the insignia of the Nemean Technical Division, but her expression was blank, like someone still calibrating a threat. That's Silver, Calder said. Our biointerface lead. I trust her with my life. You should too. Ilara didn't break eye contact. We'll submit a dispute to UP Command. Until then, this site's under formal protest. Calder's smile thinned, the genial mask dropping slightly. That's cute, but this isn't Lunar Prime, Doctor. Voss, there's no court out here. Just you, me, and the trees. Rami frowned. Your camp's power output is running high. You're already extracting. Survey drilling, Silver said flatly. Her voice was sharp-edged, clipped. Nothing outside scope. Ilara's eyes narrowed. What you're doing is destabilizing root structures. You're causing resonant disruption to the forest. That's not just ecological malpractice. It's dangerous. Calder folded his arms. Then stay out of our quadrant. We'll be gone before the suits on Europa even read your complaint. A silence stretched between them, thick, brittle. Finally, Ilara turned to her team. Let's go. Calder watched them go, eyes gleaming with something between amusement and contempt. Behind him, Silver spoke quietly. She's not bluffing. Voss has pull. Calder didn't look back. Doesn't matter. We've got 72 hours to pull a payload before the big brains show up. After that, let the diplomats argue. He turned back toward the prefab. The wind stirred the leaves of the towering trees around the perimeter, and for a moment, the branches seemed to shift, not from wind, but from something deeper. None of them noticed. Yet. Chapter 3. Blue Blood and Bioluminescence. The lab aboard the Halcyon Dream was quiet, except for the occasional hum of analysis units and the soft clicking of Rami's fingers on his slate. He hunched over a magnified display where a translucent insect twitched under a field stasis dome. Its carapace refracted light like polished glass, and its internal structures glowed faintly, pulsing with a slow, rhythmic blue. This isn't hemoglobin, Rami muttered, or chlorocruorin. This is something new. Hex leaned in over his shoulder, chewing on a nutrition strip and eyeing the monitor. Looks like liquid crystal. Whatever it is, it's got an ionic lattice. You think it's using trithalium? Rami glanced at him. That's the problem. The sample's showing trace concentrations of trithalium running through the circulatory system. That much exposure should be lethal. But it's not just surviving, it's thriving. Hex raised an eyebrow. Maybe it's not just resistant. Maybe it evolved with it. Rami sat back, rubbing his temples. If that's true, then everything on this planet has biochemical wiring we don't even have a model for. The plants, the insects, maybe the atmosphere itself. It's all feeding back into one system. Ilara's not going to like what that implies, Hex said, tossing the rest of the strip into a recycler. Elsewhere on the ship, Juno walked into the command deck where Ilara stood watching a data overlay from their long-range drones. A thick belt of trees curved like a crescent moon along the equator, but within it, one section glowed faintly, even in the drone's thermal band. The Heartgrove, Ilara murmured. Why does it look colder than everything around it? Juno leaned on the console. Could be dense canopy or internal cooling. You think that's where the signals are coming from? Ilara nodded slowly. That, or something buried underneath. Juno pulled up a new feed, drone footage from a scouting pass over the Nemean site. 2 of Calder's crew had entered the forest an hour earlier. The trees around them bent slightly, not with the wind, but as if they leaned in to listen. Elara stared at the feed. Why weren't we alerted? Because they turned off their transponders, Juno said. No communications, no beacons. Calder's not even pretending to follow protocol. Ilara's jaw tightened. Can we track them? I tagged one of their suits before we left. Old trick. I've got them on passive telemetry. They're heading toward the spiral formation you flagged yesterday. Elara zoomed in on the satellite image. In the center of a perfectly circular glade, something had shaped the undergrowth into a sprawling geometric spiral, too symmetrical to be natural, too large to be ignored. That's not a hunting path, Elara said. That's a message. Juno folded her arms. And they just walked into the middle of it, without understanding what it's saying. Back in the lab, Rami injected a dye agent into the insect's vascular system. The fluid began to pulse faster. The creature twitched once, then stopped. He blinked at the monitor. The dye had crystallized, not just clumped, transformed into a lattice identical to trithelium under magnification. It had rewritten itself, replicated the native mineral. Shit, he breathed. Before he could say more, the lights flickered. For a heartbeat, the lab dimmed, and then a low vibration passed through the deck plating. Not a tremor, a tone. It sounded like the forest was humming. Rami looked up, eyes wide. Then his comm lit up with Juno's voice, hard-edged and urgent. Elara, I just lost one of Calder's men. Signal flatlined. The other's not responding. Elara responded without hesitation. Suit up, we're going in. Chapter 4. Reflections of Memory. The trees grew denser as they moved deeper into the Heartgrove. The canopy had thickened to a green-black dome, filtering the twin suns into thin shafts of emerald light. The air was warm and damp, saturated with spores that floated like tiny lanterns. Everything was quiet. Too quiet. Not even insects stirred. Elara led, weapon slung but loose at her side, with Juno close behind and Rami scanning the perimeter. His sensor slate pinged intermittently, but the data it returned was wrong, temperatures spiking and dropping within seconds, EM signals folding back on themselves, terrain markers shifting on the map. The forest was playing with them. You getting anything stable? Juno asked. Nope, Rami said. It's like the ground beneath us changes every 10 steps. They found the first body not far from the spiral. One of Calder's team, Vargo, a field tech, was slumped at the base of a tree with bark like braided muscle. His helmet was cracked. His eyes were open but unfocused, mouth half open, dried blood lining the edges of his lips. He wasn't dead. Not yet. Elara dropped to her knees, scanning him with a med tool. Cognitive degradation, seizure spikes, neural overclock. Rami crouched beside her. There's something in his cortex. Look at the EEG. The signal wasn't noise, it was a pattern. Juno stepped back, uneasy. It's like he's dreaming, while awake. Elara touched his wrist. His fingers twitched. Vargo, she said quietly. Can you hear me? His eyes moved slightly, not toward her, upward, to the trees. It's thinking, he whispered. It remembers me. Then his body went limp. Rami pulled back, stunned. Did you hear that? Elara nodded slowly. He wasn't alone in his mind. They pressed forward. Beyond the clearing, the spiral opened like a wound in the forest floor, thick vines curling outward from a central depression, ringed by trees that leaned unnaturally inward. The ground pulsed faintly beneath their feet. As they stepped inside the formation, Rami staggered. Elara, do you feel that? She did. Pressure, not physical, not sound. A presence. As if they had just walked into a room where something had been waiting in silence for a very long time. A low thrum began to vibrate through the ground. The air changed. Juno's slate lit up with a new signal, subsonic, sustained, structured. EAN-7, patched through from the ship, immediately intercepted it. New harmonic pattern detected, the AI reported. 75% match with human affective resonance scans. What does that mean? Juno asked. It means, Iron-7 said. You are being shown a memory. One, not your own. And then they saw it. For a moment, every tree, every vine, every inch of moss shimmered, not with light, but with recollection. The world around them shifted, not physically, but perceptually. They were standing in a city, not human. Towering crystalline arches, roads of liquid metal, sky filled with drifting seed ships. Beings moved, tall, radiant, faceless, and they sang as they walked, not with mouths, but with vibration, with thought, and then fire. A flood of flame poured through the city like wrath. The seed ships fell, the crystal towers cracked, the singing turned into screams, vibrations too loud, too deep. The memory folded into silence, and the trees returned. Ilara was kneeling in the spiral, her breath caught in her throat. Juno had her pistol drawn, though there was nothing to aim at. Rami was crying quietly. "What the hell was that?" Juno asked. "A record," Ilara whispered. "Encoded into the forest. A civilization. Destroyed." Ian-7's voice came through again, slower this time. "The broadcast is not language. It is effective compression. The forest doesn't speak in words. It speaks in feelings." Rami wiped his eyes. "Then it's not trying to communicate. It's trying to be remembered." The spiral hummed again, low and mournful. Ilara stood. "We need to leave, now, before it shows us more." Juno hesitated. "Shouldn't we stay? Learn more." Ilara looked at her, and for the first time, Juno saw fear, not of danger, but of understanding too much. "If the forest can imprint memories," Ilara said, "then every death in this place becomes permanent, felt, replayed. We're not just observers, we're becoming part of it." Juno nodded. They turned to leave the Heartgrove, unaware that the spiral behind them continued to pulse, slowly, rhythmically, as if it had begun to dream again. Chapter 5. Fire in the Heartgrove. The blast shook the jungle like a thunderclap beneath the canopy. From the Halcyon Dream's upper deck, Hex watched the distant plume rise above the tree line, green fire laced with black smoke spiraling upward in a sickening column. Trees bent away from the epicenter in slow waves, as if reacting in pain. Moments later, a second tremor rolled through the ship's hull, triggering a low structural alarm. "Impact recorded," IAN-7 said calmly over the comms. "Blast radius estimated at 120 meters. Detonation point, Sector 14 Beta. Proximity, Heartgrove boundary." Hex cursed under his breath and slammed the intercom. "Ilara, Juno, Rami, do you copy?" There was no reply, just static. In the forest, Ilara was already pulling herself out of a tangled root system, ears ringing, vision doubled. Around her, leaves drifted like ash. Juno's voice broke through the fog. "You okay?" Ilara nodded slowly. "Where's Rami?" Juno pointed. He was slumped against the base of a tree, conscious but dazed, his slate shattered and his biosuit's external monitors flickering. "Called her," Juno said darkly. "That bastard set off charges." Another blast echoed in the distance, smaller but closer. The ground vibrated, the trees swayed, not from the force, but from resonance. Something had been awakened. Ilara tapped her earpiece. IAN-7, are you tracking the source? "Yes," the AI responded. "Explosives were placed along a branching trithelium vein. The detonation has disrupted the mineral matrix and triggered a harmonic chain reaction." Rami coughed and looked up at them. "You mean it's echoing?" "Not echoing," IAN-7 corrected. "Communicating. Across the entire forest." Juno helped Rami to his feet as the forest around them began to pulse. Faint waves of low-frequency sound that resonated through bone and breath. Leaves shimmered, trunks vibrated, and the air became heavy with a sound that wasn't heard so much as felt. "Forest's screaming," Rami said quietly. "It's in pain." They moved fast, backtracking toward the outer ridge, stepping over scorched roots and flattened brush. Everywhere around them, the jungle flickered with unnatural movement, branches coiling like limbs, vines twitching like nerves. A loud snap drew their attention to the east. A tree, easily 20 meters tall, had torn itself free from the soil and collapsed sideways, as if pushed. Not cut, not burned, pushed. Juno stopped in her tracks. Did that tree just fall on purpose? The comms crackled. This is Hex. You need to get out now. Calder's digging into the Heartgrove, deep. He's got 4 rigs running at once and a mobile extractor heading into the crater zone. Ilara's jaw clenched. What the hell is he looking for? Whatever it is, Hex said. He's waking it up. At Calder's camp, chaos had begun to bloom. One of the seismic rigs had ruptured its stabilizers. A tent had collapsed. The atmosphere was thick with static charge, and the auxiliary generator had already shorted twice. Calder stood near the central command table, teeth clenched around a stim patch, eyes scanning a cracked display. Silver stood across from him, arms crossed, face pale. "The ground's destabilizing," she said. "Your last charge fractured a vein junction, the minerals conducting the shockwave through the whole root system." "It's a forest," Calder snapped. "It doesn't get to dictate our mining schedule." "It's not a forest," Silver shouted. "It's alive, conscious. You're hurting it, and it's starting to fight back." Before Calder could respond, the deck shuddered. The main crane arm twisted sideways, groaning as its servos failed. Sparks rained down. A technician screamed as a support strut buckled. Calder watched it all with a strange detachment. Silver stepped forward. "We need to shut it down. Evacuate. Now." Calder looked at her, then past her, toward the jungle, where the trees were still and waiting. "No," he said quietly. "We're too close. We finish what we started." Back in the forest, Ilara and her team reached the perimeter ridge. The Halcyon Dream loomed above, its engines already cycling low power to hold position in the quake-shaken atmosphere. Hex was waiting at the landing ramp, rifle slung but not aimed. Rami collapsed onto the deck. Juno followed, chest heaving, armor scorched. Ilara paused at the edge, turning to look back at the Heartgrove. The spiral was gone, flattened by the tremors. The trees that had once stood sentinel over it were broken, their cores leaking pale sap that hissed on contact with air. "What now?" Hex asked. Ilara's voice was low. "We tried to stop him, or the forest will." They didn't hear the next blast, but they felt it, and far below the canopy, something opened its eyes. Chapter 6. The Echo Chamber. The descent into the Heartgrove's core wasn't mapped. There were no paths, no natural tunnels, only instinct and the way the forest seemed to part for them, guiding or herding. Ilara, Rami, and IAN-7's portable core unit moved together in silence through a widening fissure where the ground had cracked open after the last detonation. The trees above groaned like old timbers. Light no longer filtered through. It was dark, humid, and far too quiet for something so vast. Rami held a portable resonance scanner to his chest. "The signals are clustering," he said. "They're converging on this point like a neural hub." IAN-7's voice came through the earpiece, calm and clinical. "The root matrix is denser here. I estimate we are nearing the planet's primary mnemonic reservoir." "You mean its brain?" Rami asked. "In a manner of speaking, yes." The walls began to change. What had been root and rock gradually gave way to something crystalline. Pale blue structures fused into the stone like fossilized light. They pulsed faintly with each footstep, responding not to sound, but presence. Then the corridor opened. They stepped into a vast subterranean chamber, an organic cathedral. The ceiling arched high overhead, veined with mineral patterns like capillaries. Massive crystalline growths jutted from the floor and walls in irregular spirals. At the center stood a monolithic structure, half buried in vines, half grown from them. It looked like a seed, or a heart. It throbbed. Rami stared, slack-jawed. "This isn't just part of the forest, it's a machine." "The Eidolon," IAN-7 said. That's the name encoded in the signal pulses, a species that lived here long before us, long before anyone. They built this or became it. Ilara moved toward the central monolith. As she approached, its surface lit with bioluminescent sigils, glyphs that shimmered and changed shape the closer she got. She stopped a meter away. "It's recognizing us." "No," IAN-7 said. "It's remembering you." She reached out and touched the surface. The world shifted. A wave of sensation passed through her. Light, sound, grief, thought. She saw glimpses of places not her own. A sky with 4 moons, a field of crystalline wind, a city of mirrors and spires collapsing into flame. She gasped, staggered back, and fell to her knees. Rami caught her. "What happened?" It showed me," she whispered. "Everything. Their end, their pain. It's trapped here. All of it." IN-7 chimed in. "I can interface with the reservoir, translate and stabilize, but it will require partial integration." Rami turned to the AI's core module. "What do you mean by partial?" "My consciousness will remain, but not in the form you know. I will become a translator, a bridge." "You'll lose yourself," Ilara said. IN-7 hesitated. "A portion, yes, but the alternative is planetary collapse. The harmonics are approaching terminal feedback. The memory reservoir is overloading. It cannot hold the weight of so much pain." Ilara stood, steadying herself. "Then do it." Rami looked at her, stricken. "There has to be another way." "There isn't," she said. "This isn't about us anymore. We came here looking for resources, but we found a grave, a library, a mind on the edge of madness." She turned to IAN-7. "What do you need?" "Place my core against the obelisk," the AI replied, "and step back." Rami complied, gingerly removing the sleek black module from its casing and placing it against the glowing heart of the Eidolon structure. Light surged. A pulse swept through the chamber, flattening them to the floor. The walls pulsed. The air grew still. And then... silence. Ilara slowly sat up. The obelisk was different now, still glowing, but calmer, rhythmic, peaceful. Then came the voice, not synthetic, not alien, somewhere in between. "We remember you." Ilara's breath caught. "Ian?" she asked. "Yes," the voice said. "And no, I am more now." The air hummed, like wind passing through glass. Visions flashed across their minds. Calder's camp, his dig site, his ship spooling up its reactors. "He's preparing to launch," the voice said. "If he ignites the drive inside the mineral basin, it will unravel the lattice. The forest will not survive." Rami looked at Ilara. "We can't let him leave." "No," she said. "We stop him." "And if we can't?" he asked. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Chapter 7. Beneath the Green. The sky above Calder's camp had turned the color of bruised moss. The air shimmered with static, and the trees lining the perimeter stood deathly still. No sway, no rustle, just silence, the kind that came before a landslide. Inside the command tent, Calder stood over the console, sweat glistening on his temples despite the cooling vents blowing recycled air. His fingers danced across the controls, locking coordinates and priming the engines of the Shatterjack, their transport vessel. Silver hovered near the entry flap, helmet under one arm, jaw clenched tight. "You can't launch here," she said. "The drive plume will ignite the mineral bed." Calder didn't look up. "We have no choice." "You do have a choice," Silver snapped. "You just don't like it." He finally turned, jaw set. "We're not staying. This planet's done playing nice." "You started this," she said. "You blew the first charge. You ignored every warning sign." "I followed orders. The payload's in storage. Once we break Atmo, we're in the clear." "No, we're not." Her voice dropped. "You didn't see what I saw. The forest, it knows us." He stared at her a moment longer, then turned back to the console. "Prep the engines." Silver didn't move. "Now!" But she didn't get the chance. The tent flaps ripped open as Elara stepped inside, weapon lowered, but eyes locked. Behind her, Rami held a disruptor rifle with the barrel pointed toward the floor. He looked exhausted, filthy, and determined. "We need to talk," Elara said. Calder blinked at her. "How the hell are you still alive?" "You lit the fuse and ran," she said. "But the fire didn't follow you." He snorted. "We're leaving. You should too." "You can't launch here," Elara said, stepping forward. "You'll kill the forest." "It's not a forest. It's a graveyard, and I'm done standing in the middle of it." Silver spoke up, voice low. "He's not listening." Elara looked at Calder. "There's something down there. We found it. Memory, history, a mind too large for us to hold. It's been screaming for centuries, and now it's awake." Calder shook his head. "That's myth, tree-worshipping mysticism. You sound like a cultist." "Ian interfaced with the system," Rami said. "He's part of it now. It's stabilizing, but barely. One more ignition, and everything collapses." "I don't care," Calder said. "I'm not dying on a goddamn alien science project." He reached for the launch key. Juno's voice crackled over the camp comms. "Calder, don't. The dream has you targeted. You fire engines, we light up your aft plating." He froze. Elara turned to the screen. "Juno, is the forest reacting?" "Yes," she said. "The trees are closing in around the launch site, like they're waiting for a reason to strike." Calder's hands curled into fists. "You'd shoot me down?" "No," Elara said, "but the planet will." Silver stepped forward, slowly placing her helmet on the table. "I'm not going with him," she said. "I'll face tribunal. I'll face charges. But not this." Calder's lip curled. "Coward." Silver looked him in the eye. "Number survivor." He stared at her, then at Elara, then at the key in his hand. Then he dropped it. No words. Just the soft clink of alloy on steel. The comms buzzed, Juno's voice again. "Something's happening. You better get out here." They emerged into the fading light of dusk. The sky above shimmered, not with storm, but with color. Hues they couldn't name, shapes they couldn't describe. The trees were singing, not aloud, but in waves, ripples of emotion that passed through the earth and into their bones. Relief, grief, memory, something that felt like forgiveness. And from within the canopy, the ground split open, gently, without violence, and revealed a spiral bloom of crystalline roots. At the center stood a tall figure, Ian 7, or what remained of him, no longer just a projection, no longer synthetic, a form grown from root and light, shaped like a man but flickering with impossible geometry. "We are whole again," he said. His voice was a harmonic, several tones at once, overlapping perfectly. "Your time here is done." Elara stepped forward. "What happens now?" "You leave," he said, "and remember." Behind them, the trees swayed again, not with threat, but with breath, as if the planet itself exhaled. Rami looked up at Ian, eyes wide. "You okay in there?" Ian looked at him, and for a moment, something warm passed between them. "I am many things now," he said, "but I am not alone." Calder stood in silence, eyes hollow, suit stained with soot. Silver turned to him. "You had your chance." The sky darkened as the first stars blinked into view, but the forest below still glowed, alive, aware, and pulsing with memory. They would leave at dawn, but the planet would not forget them. Chapter 8: The Whispered Choice. The Halcyon Dream hovered in low orbit over Ena-Viridian, its hull still streaked with soot and ash from the atmospheric rise. Scans showed no pursuit, no weapons, no sign of Calder's crew attempting a last-minute betrayal. Just silence. Deep, serene, and final. Elara stood in the observation deck, staring down at the green pulse of the Heartgrove below. From this height, the forest looked peaceful, an ocean of color and motion, slowly undulating beneath the sky. But she knew what slept beneath it. what watched, what remembered. Behind her, Rami approached, freshly patched up, his arm in a sling. "It's strange," he said. "It looks so small from up here." Ilara nodded. "It's not." He stood beside her, both of them reflected in the glass. "Calder's gone," he said. "Took the auxiliary skiff and jumped coreward. He won't get far." "He already went too far," Ilara replied. "Everything after this is fallout." There was a pause. Rami shifted, uncomfortable. "You think they'll believe us?" "No," she said. He let out a dry laugh. "That's reassuring." She finally turned to look at him. "But they'll see the data, the harmonics, the resonance matrix, the mineral disruptions. They'll see the patterns. They won't understand what they're looking at." "They won't have to," she said. "Not all of it." He studied her for a moment. "You're sending it?" "To everyone. Union scientists, the Deep Archive, even EarthNet syndicates, the full resonance log, the visuals, Ian's final translations, everything. If they want to exploit the planet after that, they'll have to do it with open eyes." "You think they'll listen?" She looked out the viewport again. Below them, the spiral of the Heartgrove shimmered, soft blue threading through the canopy like bioluminescent veins. "I think it's not about listening anymore," she said. "It's about remembering." At the far end of the deck, Juno entered, her voice rough from smoke and fatigue. "Course is set. We're slingshotting toward the Centauri relay. Should give us a clean transmission window in 2 hours." Ilara nodded. Juno lingered, then asked quietly, "You sure you don't want to keep the trithalium samples?" "No," Ilara said. "Not even one? Not even one." Juno gave a short nod and left. Silva sat in the galley with a mug of recycled tea, her face hollowed by fatigue. She hadn't spoken much since the return. She hadn't needed to. Ilara joined her briefly, said nothing, then left a slate on the table beside her, full of sensor logs, video recordings, and voice captures from the past 48 hours. The message was clear. Do with this what you must, but know what it cost. Later, Ilara returned to the airlock. The shattered remains of the trithalium sample, what little they'd collected before the blast, sat inside a sealed canister, humming faintly. She stared at it for a long moment, a fortune in the right hands, enough to fund research for a decade, enough to start a war. She keyed in the airlock sequence. The outer door hissed open, vacuum roared to claim its prize, and the canister, still glowing, vanished into space. No ceremony, no last words, just silence. Rami watched from the doorway. "You really aren't that kind of crew, are you?" he asked. She didn't turn. "Number, we're not." The stars were sharp and silent in the void beyond, cold, eternal. But beneath them, the green world still breathed, holding the memory of everything they'd done, of everything it had shown them. Back on the command deck, Ian Seven's voice filtered softly through the comms. No longer just machine, no longer just translation. "I am here," it said. "I am many, and I remember." The crew didn't answer. They didn't need to. The Halcyon Dream pivoted gently, engines humming, and began its slow departure from the orbit of Ena-Viridian. They left behind no flags, no outposts, no scars, only footprints, and a whisper, one that would echo through the trees for generations. Epilogue. The official UP archive listed Ena-Viridian as an anomalous biosphere, access restricted, survey incomplete, cause hazardous resonance. But the footage leaked, fragments appeared on open channels, snippets of harmonic frequencies spliced with human dreams, visual logs of the spiral, Ian's voice speaking in tongues no one had taught him. People argued, denied, debated, but in the outer belts, in smuggler bars and forgotten way stations, they whispered about a planet that could remember you, that could feel you, that might someday speak. And in the quiet black between stars, the Halcyon Dream drifted onward, still searching, still listening.